It should be bigger news that a federal judge just declared that Donald Trump is creating illegally, unconstitutionally, in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, is creating a national federalized police force with him as the chief. And another court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is supposed to lean all the way right, decided to stand up instead for democracy and for our rule of law and find that Donald Trump violated the Alien Enemies Act because we're not at war with Venezuela. There's no enemy incursion or predatory incursion by Venezuelans or the Tren de Aragua gang, despite the fact we just blew up a boat with 11 people on it, a fishing boat in the Caribbean that Donald Trump claims is a warship, effectively, running drugs through the Caribbean. I'm Michael Popak. Watch us on Legal AF, the podcast where we break it all down, and here's a clip. Then you've got the Alien Enemies Act, which because of his failures in the lawsuits and because of the attention we brought to it on Midas and on Legal AF, he has not used the Alien Enemies Act to deport anybody since March. And that's not by coincidence. It's not like he forgot about it. It's because he's losing badly between the Abrego Garcia case and the losses now at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which leans to the right. 2-1 ruled that after a remand from the United States Supreme Court, ruled that Donald Trump could not use the Alien Enemies Act and improperly used it, unconstitutionally used it in violation of the statute by deporting hundreds of people from Texas, or trying to, by claiming that there was an enemy invasion, a war, no declared war with Congress, predatory invasion, or incursion. They said there were none of those things. You cannot use the Alien Enemies Act. The only thing they said was okay with a decision within the decision was a 2-1 that his 7-day notice was proper due process. Another one of the judges said 21 days so they had a little internal fight about that. But as the Alien Enemies Act, which was the framework by which Donald Trump started deporting 200 people to the torture prisons of El Salvador and then in other places. That is now the first court back to the Supreme Court as to whether Donald Trump can call the Alien Enemies Act. He can just declare a national crisis. Now, that day when that judgment came out is the day that he bombed out of existence 11 people without due process, without a court of law, without a conviction, who he claimed to be Venezuelan drug lords working for Tren de Aragua. That's not a coincidence. He's going to create a war. It's not the first time in American history we ever bombed a ship as a pretext to a war. Look at the Gulf of Tonkin. So he bombed a fishing boat and then claimed, well, they couldn't get their story straight. Marco Rubio, who's leading the charge here, is like, see, we did drug interdiction. When you see the interview with Marco Rubio when they caught him coming off the plane in other places, he never talked about we're at war with the Maduro regime in Venezuela. He said drug interdiction. We're stopping drugs from spreading through the Caribbean. I'm like, that's our new job? To stop drug interdiction in the Caribbean by bombing ships with our military? No, that's so Donald Trump can say, look, we're at war with Venezuela. So we had that bad ruling. Again, as I said at the top, look for the wag the dog moments when Donald Trump tries to start a war or dump some files on us or sues a city or federalizes National Guard and creates a federal police force to has an occupying standing army. That's off of a bad news cycle from that particular day. The Posse Comitatus, that was Tuesday, coming off of Labor Day. We get the decision by Judge Breyer in San Francisco. Now we're in our third court. Again, this is all the same week in which he rules. He made a chilling observation and finding on the way to finding that the Posse Comitatus Act had been violated by Donald Trump. And the easiest way to explain the PCA, for those that are joining late to the story, is that you are not allowed under our system of constitutional republican federalism, if you're a president, to create a standing army and use the might of the U.S. military on domestic soil for civilian law enforcement purposes. That's the Posse Comitatus Act in a nutshell. Whether you federalize the state National Guard or you create your own boot-jacked group of shock troops, which Donald Trump is doing through ICE and Border Patrol and through the U.S. Marshal Service, whatever you're doing, and you're creating a standing army, which is the very reason we left England with the Declaration of Independence, that violates the Posse Comitatus Act. But Breyer went further in the first page or so of his decision. He said, what we are watching is a president creating a federal police force with him as the chief, all in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. So when you hear that Trump is attacking the Boston mayor or the city of Boston or the city of Chicago, we'll put up a meme related to that, or going after Cleveland or going after other blue cities or states, taking his shock forces on the road. All of that is a violation of our system of federalism, about the power of the states and their sovereignty, the role of the militia in those places, and is unconstitutional. Now we have our first decision. It'll go up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I just interviewed Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, about this. You can find it on Legal AF Substack as well. And ultimately to the Supreme Court, which has sat on the sidelines because they haven't been asked to do anything yet related to the Posse Comitatus Act. And fresh on the heels of that ruling, the District of Columbia filed a new lawsuit in order to get the militia, federalized militia, and the Marines and others off the streets of D.C. once and for all. And that is a direct consequence of Judge Breyer's ruling in San Francisco. So these things have consequences. You want to put up his attack on Chicago, a sovereign state?
Yeah, let's put up the meme right here that Donald Trump posted this morning. A photo of him saying, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." And it's a reference to, I guess, the movie Apocalypse Now, Vietnam movie, but he's calling it Chipocalypse Now. And the implication is that he's going to send in our military to put Agent Orange all over Chicago and to kill the people of Chicago and invade it. I want to talk about that, Popak, but I want to take another quick break. But I want to say one thing before doing that, which is all of this also hinges on the Supreme Court having given Donald Trump absolute immunity last year or 2 years ago at this point in that horrific ruling. Because the absolute immunity ruling, if it didn't exist and he didn't have immunity, these are willful violations of the law. Meaning he should be criminally prosecuted for this behavior. If you go and just start killing people abroad, and murdering people and causing people to die, and there are willful violations of the law, that's prison stuff. That's felony stuff. That's treason stuff. That's traitorous stuff. But the Supreme Court's absolute immunity is, well, if you say you were doing it in the course and scope of what your executive functions are, just tether it to a war power, which is why Donald Trump always says, it's a war power, it's a war power, it's a war power. Then you don't even have the fear of being criminally prosecuted, which every other president in the history of the United States would think, I could be criminally prosecuted for this. Their behavior was such as the president of the United States, other than Nixon, and a few and a bunch of others in the 19th century act like everything. They're all great, but their behavior was such that modern day presidents wouldn't be like, oh my God, am I going to be criminally prosecuted? But like literally everything that Donald Trump does in a day, forget it being an impeachable offense. In my opinion, a lot of this stuff is just absolutely criminal, and he hides behind immunity.
Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network, and commercial-free versions on the Legal AF Substack. If you don't know what Substack is, come on over and check it out. Legal AF Substack, commercial-free versions of the podcast. I do 2 lives a day. In addition to that, we've got amazing other commentary on Legal AF Substack. Support the Legal AF podcast. Watch the full show Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel for Midas Touch, and in addition to that, on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.